you and I talk a little bit about the current product as we've talked here a little bit back and forwards. I have a lot that I agree with you on. Is it everything? I don't know, but my job is to present things to you here and get a reaction from you and your opinion
Right.
on it. So that's what we're going to do here.
Okay.
It's changed a lot since you've been in it. I actually want to kick this off. You're going to call me the devil's advocate, which I'm fine with that. I want to read you a quote from Kenny Omega. It says, and this was I think it was about 5 years ago-ish, Bill. I want to say maybe 6 even. And this was what he was talking about, your training philosophy. And just to quote it, and there is more to the quote, but I'm not going to read it all. I think he understood the power plant philosophy. He wasn't the greatest pro wrestling teacher. So, Bill, when I read that, a couple things come to my mind, like, well, what the hell's pro wrestling then? Like, is pro wrestling something different now?
Yeah.
I'm not just reading this to piss you off, but like, what? It made me think, what the hell's pro wrestling? Like, what does that even mean? Like, does that mean that Bill DeMott can't do a lariat or some crazy swan? I mean, like, I'm just confused when I read something like that, when I hear something like that.
It's it's funny because I think Kenny just came out and did another interview talking about his early experience with WWE and how it wasn't for him. Kenny didn't spend a lot of time with us in Deep South. He wasn't there very long. Clearly he wasn't unhappy because he had a vision of what he wanted to do. And early on, you knew he was an entertainer. I said from the beginning, and here's the cool thing about me, I keep everything I've ever done. I learned that a long time ago. So I keep every report, every email, every training tape. I have a storage unit that I should probably just get rid of, but it's just that thing I've done. That's, as a coach, that's what you do. But Kenny wasn't really happy with the way he was being asked to do things. Turns out Kenny wasn't happy with wrestling. I think in his latest interview, his perception of wrestling wasn't what he thought it was, and it wasn't for him, at least in the WWE standard way of doing things. And you got that a lot early on from the independent kind of guys that were just starting out, because they, and I say to this day, if you're making money doing what you do and you love what you do, don't come to a camp where you're going to learn the WWE way, because it's going to take everything away from you and then give it back. But can you subscribe to this mentality, this thing we do? So as far as when Kenny came to Deep South wasn't there like the Performance Center where you're there getting groomed. Deep South was there for guys that had some kind of knowledge, that needed to get into 20-foot ring shape, that needed to understand the mentality of how they like to do their TVs. And there's just certain guys who don't want to change what they do. So when they're unhappy, it's like anything else. They go out and say or do or whatever else. It's funny because I have his parting letter to John Laurinaitis. I have it in a file. It's just he was unhappy. He was away from home, his girlfriend or whatever. But I've heard it before and Kenny's made no bones about jumping all over me as a person and a coach for years. But to be honest, he didn't spend that much time with me. So I don't really hold that much. It doesn't hold that much water with me. It's just, when people leave, they get to say and do what they want. And if you have a following and, people jump on that, and people who don't know go, yeah, and this and that. And so I have no ill will towards him. He had to do what he had to do. I wish he wouldn't have gilded the lily and put all of it on me and just came out when he started burying me on the internet, came out and said, listen, it just wasn't for me. And I didn't gel with DeMott. I didn't realize him and I had a problem, except for when he tried to wear a plunger on his head in the middle of a TV taping. That was the issues with Kenny. He wanted to do crazy stuff. So
he's kind of paved his own path too. But back to my original point, obviously professional wrestling is different for others. It's different for Kenny Omega. He's kind of paved his own way. Yeah. But when I hear that comment, that made me think like, well, that's professional wrestling, something different to Kenny. And he's paved his own way with it for sure.
Yeah. And he's done a great job. Kenny wasn't there for the traditional way to get in this business. Athletic, inventive. He wanted to do crazy things and get people to react. It's just like when he went years ago and he wrestled that little girl in Japan. It was the biggest thing going. That's who he is and what he does. And he's very good at what he does. And he's a hell of an athlete. I said years ago, and I'll stand by it, I said he was the next Chris Jericho. I'm a big fan of Kenny Omega. I can't help it. He's not a fan of me or what he perceived I was going to do or did. But I think professional wrestling means different things to different people. And unfortunately, when you get asked to join, pulled in, and by the way, paid, you're not training and paying your way, you're getting paid to learn a certain way of doing things. And that theory didn't change back in the early 90s when Omega was there. It didn't change in the 2000s when Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose were there. It didn't change when Sami Zayn came in. It didn't change when Pac came in. It didn't change when Charlotte came in. It didn't change when Sheamus came in and Wade and all these other guys. The theory has not changed. It's just if you're going to be there, learn what they're asking of you, and then become who you want to be. That's where the trust is. But, that we could talk about that forever, and I'm sure we will. But yeah, I like I said, people have a platform, and I really wish they'd use it on something more than just saying, I hate Bill DeMott. He made me work too hard, Don't let mama regret. Give your love and your sweat
to the shadow. All right. This is Jeff Townsend of Jeff Townsend Media. Thank you for checking out the podcast on YouTube. If you're enjoying the show, please subscribe to it, share it with the world, share it with all your friends, your mothers, your brothers, your sisters, everybody. Also, there are plenty of other videos for you to listen to and watch in the meantime. This podcast is also available on all major podcast listening platforms. If you want to learn more about it, go to BillDeMott.com.